Welcome back to Broadcast Row. I'm here with Larry O'Connor, host of Larry at Town Hall. Larry, thank you for joining me.
It's the weirdest name for a show, isn't it?
It is a little weird.
Although if Tucker could do Tucker,
sure.
and if remember, you're too young to know this, but some of our AMAC friends will remember Sonny and Cher.
Sure.
And then Cher had her own show called
Cher.
So I'm like the Cher
That's fine.
of conservative media. This is not going well.
No, I think it's going great, actually. I have no problem with everyone good?
I also John, is that it? Are we good? I also host the morning show on WMAL in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
So it's like the morning news talk show for everyone in Washington.
Great.
And even better, everyone outside Washington driving into Washington to work in the Pentagon and the...
So they hear you every morning?
I am their voice they wake up
to. You're their alarm clock?
Exactly.
Great. Okay,
exactly.
Great. So,
it doesn't escape me that a lot of my listeners are either in bed or in the shower.
do you think they listen to you in
I
bed?
try not to picture that.
You have to picture. You could ask. You never know. Anyway, okay. So we had Larry did a panel yesterday.
Now I can only picture it. Now that's the only thing I can picture.
So
Yes, I did a panel yesterday. Yeah.
with
yeah.
Rick Grinnell.
Yes, Ambassador Rick Grinnell, former ambassador of Germany, and also acting director of national intelligence.
I'm just going to keep it short, and I'll let him do that.
This is the problem when you interview
I like it, actually.
an interviewer, because I immediately, I'm going to be asking you questions soon. I apologize.
No, I'm all for it. So tell us about that for our members who were not in there for that to listen to it.
Well, Ambassador Grinnell, I'm sure everybody knows that obviously, he was he was spokesperson for the U.S. ambassador at the UN all during the Bush years, longest serving official at the United Nations on behalf of America during that time. Then he was the ambassador to Germany for President Trump, and he's kind of a foreign policy expert. So I was very excited. We had about 25 minutes, and I made a list of all of the hot spots around the world right now, from Russia to Ukraine to Israel and the war with Hamas, Iran and all of the terror attacks that they are funding with our dollars that Biden has given them, to China, to Taiwan, to Afghanistan and the pullout, to trouble in Latin America that we are ignoring and, in fact, encouraging chaos with our open border. You go on and on and on, and you realize a relatively peaceful world that the Biden administration was handed by Rick Grinnell, Mike Pompeo, Robert O'Brien, and the whole national security team for Biden. And what we've turned into. In just 3 years, it is chaotic worldwide. And so we basically went region by region, and I said, what happened here, Ambassador Grinnell, and how quickly can we fix it should we win this election coming up this November?
I think it's amazing how many people, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, would have said, how could it be intentional? But it seems like now everyone's reached that conclusion, right?
Well,
I think you would agree.
I try not to go there.
Sure.
I try to be as positive and hopeful as possible, but you're right. It's hard not to reach that conclusion, especially when you've got politicians who were, actively antagonizing certain situations. I'll give you one example, because I think that there's a lot of complicated issues, and I'm hardly a foreign policy expert. But it seems like Israel is a pretty stalwart ally to this country, an important ally in the Middle East, right? And during the Trump administration, we moved the embassy to Jerusalem. We let the entire region know that we are on Israel's side, and if those countries want to be on America's side, they should make nice with Israel. And before you know it, we have these unprecedented Arab-Israeli peace treaties going on from 3 countries that up until that point hadn't even recognized Israel's right to exist. Part of what the Trump administration did was that they cut humanitarian aid to the government in Gaza, because the government in Gaza is Hamas. And the Trump administration said, this is not humanitarian aid. They're not using this money to help the people of the Gaza territories. They're using it to build up a terrorist network. So we're cutting off this funding. Joe Biden gets in there, turns on that funding, and 3 years later, you've got October 7th. That's very simple to look at. And it's hard to suggest that it's not deliberate.
So if it is deliberate, what do you think is the reason behind it? What is their end goal for doing this?
I think, there's a couple of things. First of all, I don't know, because I don't think that evilly, sadly.
Sure.
I can't.
Sure.
But I do think that there is a permanent infrastructure in Washington, D.C., within the defense industry, within the State Department, and the entire wide-reaching intelligence and diplomatic network around the world, run through the United States of America, that likes to make sure that they will continue to exist, that they get bigger, that they're necessary. You get a job in Washington. Let me rephrase this. You get a job in the private sector, And you know you've got job security as long as you've got customers that need your product, right? That's simple market economics. Most people in business are selling a product or a service. You're selling a service right now. We're delivering information, engaging entertainment, and of course, AMAC on a bigger scale provides a service to all of the members, right? As soon as AMAC falls down on the job of providing service to their members, they're going to lose members, all right? That's basic economics. You're selling hamburgers. As long as people want to buy your hamburgers, you're going to stay in business. You'll lose your job if people don't want your hamburgers anymore. Now look at the government. All of the people who work and make money in the State Department, in the Diplomatics Corps, in the intelligence community, in the military industrial complex, as long as people still need them, they'll stay in business. And so if there's peace, if there's prosperity, if things are going well, people are going to be out of jobs.
Sure.
So, I mean, it simply is that basic, I think, sadly.
I think most people agree with that. And every election year, there seems to be something that occurs. There's always something important that sort of swings an election.
Yeah.
Not swings it, but at least influences it. This year...
Well, 4 years ago, I guess
COVID.
We did have a pandemic, didn't we?
It's something small.
I'm kidding.
But from this point on, do you see this next year getting even more chaotic than typical election years, just based on how hostile things are?
Well, yeah.
That's fine.
I think this year's going to be. I think this year's going to be nuts. Yeah. I really do.
I agree.
Especially considering, look at everything they have thrown at Trump. And by the way, it's not just Trump. It's conservatives in general. It's Republicans. It's
free speech.
It's people who refuse to support the current president and his party.
Which is not just all Republicans. There's a lot of people now, even Democrats, who don't want to do that anymore.
Absolutely. Right. And when they go after Trump the way they have with all of these charges, it's about hurting Trump, but ultimately the goal is to keep him from being a viable option for Americans to vote for.
Now,
right. And so they're really trying to get in the way of us voting for somebody that we want to vote for. They've thrown all of that at him. And right now in the latest national polls, he's leading Biden by about 5 points. In the battleground states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, he's beating Biden. So if they've thrown all this at him and he's still leading in the polls, things are going to get chaotic.
Do you think the Democrat nominee matters? Because there's obviously been talk about maybe Biden not stepping aside, but then replacing him. They throw Newsom, Michelle. I don't think that matters as much anymore. I think the stain of the party is on whoever the nominee will be for the Democrats. But what do you think about anyone getting into the race?
So I do think that they're going to make a change. I think that the report from Special Prosecutor Robert Hur was devastating. You don't want to hear a U.S. attorney file a court document that says the president does not have the mental capacity to stand trial.
Sort of a prerequisite.
That's kind of a problem. And I think as long as Trump keeps winning in the polls, they're going to have to throw a Hail Mary. Here's the thing. The Democrats want to retain power. And as soon as they reach the point where they realize that staying with Biden means they're not going to retain power, I think that Mr. Biden is convinced that he needs to step down. And I think the way they convince him is, hey, Joe, pressure's getting pretty heavy on Hunter there, and it's starting to look bad for the Biden family. Here's what you do. Pardon Hunter, pardon your brother. You can pardon yourself if you want. Then you step down. Kamala Harris takes over. And now instead of running as sort of a punchline vice president to a failed presidency, she is now running against Donald Trump as a historic first woman black president.
So you predict Kamala for the nominee?
I do.
Okay.
Because I think that that's their strongest move and also the strongest move that doesn't stink to high heaven.
Sure. More believable.
Right.
At least
bringing in Gavin Newsom,
makes sense.
Bringing in Michelle Obama or anything like that. It's like, oh, come on.
That's a lot of moving parts.
But if he steps down, she becomes president, and then she runs as president. Now, the problem is she has huge liabilities.
Well, sure. She's actually even more unpopular than he is somehow.
But I think she will get such a media rush of excitement and celebration being this historic figure.
Do you think she would get any more than any of the other Democrat nominees potentially, though?
Well, I think she gets more than Biden, and it's got to be one of those two. I really can't see them skipping over her. How do they do that?
I don't know.
Even they aren't that shameless.
I agree.
Okay, forget I said that, actually. Now that I think about it, yeah.
We'll wrap up there.
Maybe
watch Larry at Town
Larry
Hall.
at Town Hall,
and you can
all
listen,
the Town Hall sites.
And you can listen to it in the shower, you said, in the car, wherever you want.
My morning radio show, listen to it, hopefully with some clothes on. But you know what? I don't want to dictate. You reach a certain point in life where you want to have independence. If I want to listen to O'Connor and Company on WMAL in Washington, D.C. with no clothes on, damn it, I'm going to do it.
I agree.
Thank
you very much. We'll be right back.